We got a late-breaking development late today. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, who is a grown-up by most people's definition politically, no lefty, a very veteran, smart legislator, has said she doesn't want... Here's what she said. She's writing a letter to the president, and she's put it out publicly. Dear Mr. President, this is the President Obama late today. I am writing to respectfully request that comments regarding holding individuals accountable for detention and interrogation-related activities be held in reserve until the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence is able to complete its review of the conditions and interrogations of certain high-value detainees. Joe Coniston, it sounds like Dianne Feinstein, Die-Fi as she's called, is not ready to exonerate the big shots.
I don't think she is. You know, Chris, she's not a newcomer to the Intelligence Committee either. I mean, she's seen all of the evidence that made Senator Rockefeller speak out last year and say there had been no real value gained from torture. And by the way, you know, you need to place whatever supposed things of value were learned from torturing people against the grave cost, the reputation of the United States by doing these acts. It's not as if these things occur in a vacuum or there's no cost to them. There are enormous costs to them that many people in our military have talked about.
What about the circumstances that obtained after 9/11 in the 2002 period when we had al-Zubaydah and we had to stop what looked to be another attack? Where would you put your balancing scales there in terms of bad PR and the need to stop something horrible from happening?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see, Chris, whether they can show that they stopped something horrible from happening, because we know that a lot of horrible things did happen as a result of torture and other degrading techniques that the United States used. Everybody who has knowledge of this in the military says that they served as great recruiting tools for terrorism around the world.
Yeah, I agree with that part of it. I agree with that part of it. It's the other part I don't know about. Michael, I don't know, and none of us know, is to what extent was it an extremist situation, a ticking time bomb situation where reasonable people, and that might sometime include the vice president. In those circumstances, I might give him a benefit of the doubt, where he really did figure he had a suspect in hand who could stop another disaster like 9/11. And in that circumstance, it seems to me the balance shifts a bit toward extreme circumstances, extreme action. I don't know. I'm not an expert. What do you think?
Well, I think something can be read into the fact that for all the conversation, for all the headlines, for all the attention this is now receiving, only 3 individuals, according to all of these published accounts, were waterboarded. So if this were a technique that was being applied ad infinitum in Guantanamo to all of the detainees, we'd be talking about far more cases than these 3. I mean, today's headline is about how it was applied 266 times. But, Chris, if you do the math, if the average application is 20 seconds, and that's what's been reported, then we're talking about a total of 88 minutes and 40 seconds. In other words, less than an hour and a half for these 2 individuals. So I think it gets blown real out of proportion, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Those who want to tell us that it's giving the country a black eye are the same folks who want these memos circulated and for there to be more public debate.
Do you really think that waterboarding was the only thing that happened? Do you think that waterboarding of those 3 guys was the only thing that was done? You know, we know people were killed in Bagram and Abu Ghraib, and perhaps other places as well. And some of them innocent, by the way. And this kind of the entire sort of panoply of techniques, of arrests, detentions, and behavior that's outside of the law, outside of the Geneva Conventions. The things that differentiate us from our adversaries are what have caused us grave harm in the world.
Do you think it's a recruiting tool, Michael?
Not 88 minutes of waterboarding.
Michael, do you think Abu Ghraib and the humiliation of those Arab men, which is all over the world, do you think that kind of humiliation of Arab men, Islamic men, didn't serve as a recruiting poster for the bad guys?
I think that it did serve as a recruiting poster, but what I'm cognizant of is the fact that at that time there were 140,000 American troops overseas, and we were talking about less than a dozen knuckleheads. They were idiots. They reminded me of fraternity pranksters, and they gave us all a black eye, and they should have been drummed out of the military and prosecuted. But let's get over it already.
Wait a minute, Michael. Before you blame the little guy, and exonerate the big shots, if you talk about manacling people, putting them in handcuffs, making them naked, making them sit around for the longest time, that's what the pictures were in Abu Ghraib. These non-coms and these enlisted people were basically doing what was in the manual. How can you exonerate the big shots when they wrote the rule book for this kind of behavior? Humiliate the prisoners, soften them up for intelligence, That's what the order was from Cambone. Soften them up for intelligence.
Please don't equate what went on at Abu Ghraib with Guantanamo, where we're talking about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who Danny Pearl was decapitated by this guy.
Memos,
I mean, one has nothing.
Well, we have to equate
Chris,
it because
one has nothing to do with the other.
We don't know if Danny Pearl was decapitated by him because he confessed to that under torture. So how confident are you about that? The Pakistanis arrested somebody else for the murder of Daniel Pearl. So you don't really know that. And that's one of the problems with torture. We can't. It's very hard to hold people responsible for things that they confess to doing when you've been waterboarding them.
Michael, take a look at those rules about what we can do to prisoners, and it looks to me like those people who you put down, those working-class people from West Virginia, like Lindy England, they were doing sort of what they were hearing from Cambone when they came over from Gitmo over to Abu Ghraib to spread the good news about how to torture people. They were getting the word. They weren't creative people, Michael. Michael Smerconish. Good luck with the book. We'll have you back to talk about the book. Well, we'll talk about it when you come back. Joe, thank you as always. Joe Conason, Michael Smerconish.